And we're back with more Talking While TV with Doug Andrews. Hi, Doug.
Howdy.
So divorce, yes or no?
Sometimes.
Is when a couple is having problems in their marriage, is divorce really the only solution?
Absolutely not. Frequently, it depends upon what's precipitating, causing the problem. Now, if he comes home late at night, drunk, and shoots her, not kills her, just wounds her, that might be a clue that divorce would be appropriate. But something short of that, it's debatable. It depends upon the parties and whether they take their vows seriously that they exchanged when they got married, and what are the consequences of either staying together or separating.
What are some alternatives?
Well, I think there was a movie about divorce American style, murdering your wife. I don't recommend that whatsoever. There are other ways to obtain peace than peace behind bars. Counseling, evaluating the Benjamin Franklin way, the pros and the cons, the good and the bad of staying together or seeking divorce. For many people, it's a question of religion, too. If you're Catholic, divorce is not supported by the church. And you have to go to extraordinary lengths to convince them, well, there was no real marriage, a meeting of the minds or souls in the Catholic Church to obtain the divorce from the, I guess, with the Pope's blessing. But for most folks, it comes down to practical issues.
And what about the common excuse? We're going to stay married for the kids.
Well, and that's a commendable attitude sometimes. But if you're going to continue the war of the roses in front of the children and fighting constantly, yelling and screaming at each other, you're going to drive the kids nuts. They're better off without both of you, maybe, but at least they don't need the strife in their lives from that kind of rancorous relationship. So children raised by a committed two-parent household, by research, demonstrably do better in school, do better in college, and in their own relationships the rest of their lives. So if the folks can work together to get the kids raised in a loving, harmonious, peaceful relationship, solve the underlying problems, whether it's communication, whether it's money, whether it's sex, sometimes too much sex, sometimes not enough sex. Whatever the issue is, look at solving it, because you committed to each other at one point during your courtship and then in your vows. Live your vows.
What role can a lawyer play in helping a couple decide if it's yes or no?
Well,
I mean, wouldn't it be in your best interest for the answer to always be split up?
No. Remember, Doug Andrews is busy and doesn't need any more clients. Let's start with that premise. Solve the problems. And I have done that numerous times to talk with folks and say, is divorce necessary? Steer them into counseling. Get them to evaluate their situation. There's enough work out there that I don't need everybody who needs my services or thinks they do. If I can steer them to an alternative, I'm happy, and hopefully they're happy in the long run.
Well, last year we talked about peaceful divorces in a program with mediation divorce.
Trish Murphy, she did a great job on collaborative divorce, where the parties basically do a team approach. Let's solve the problem peacefully, working together, putting, get this, the kids first.
Okay, and that's if things are going well. What if it's adversarial divorce and there's no way this is going to be saved? So what steps do I take to ensure my financial well-being down the road?
Well, there's nothing that you can do to assure it. You can try to protect yourself, first of all, making sure that at the point when relationships appear to be going south, you take protection of your bank accounts, your credit cards, and so forth, so that only you can access the things you need to. Set up a separate account for your spouse so that you both are responsible for whatever money you have individually as opposed to the joint accounts. it's too fraught with peril for either party to have complete access to all of it, because absolute power corrupts absolutely.
So at what point does the judge look at the situation and say, well, you've hidden everything and taken everything, and now you look like the bad guy instead of the guy protecting himself?
Well, as long as you allow enough funds so that folks can continue with their current standard of living, the judge is not going to be upset with either party. The judge does get and should get upset if one spouse has taken all the funds of the marriage and hidden it somewhere, and the other spouse is having to go on welfare, so to speak. Well, that's not right, it's not fair, and the judge won't tolerate it. There would be a temporary hearing granted rather quickly to maintain the status quo ante, meaning what it was like before this trouble started, and that's what the temporary hearing does. So you can protect the large nest eggs if you have $1 million or $2 million sitting in securities or something and both names are on it. As long as both names are on it and it requires 2 signatures, you're probably okay. But if either spouse can do something with that, you need to protect that asset, whichever party is more responsible.
Yeah, how do you choose a really good divorce lawyer?
Kind of like underwear, based upon fit, size, and comfort, and price is in there somewhere. But you need to talk to a couple of lawyers, get a feel for, are they too busy to handle your case? Do they appear to care or be concerned? If the first thing they want to talk about is money and how much they're going to charge you, maybe that's their emphasis. Nothing wrong with sorting those matters out, but it doesn't necessarily have to be the very first topic. In my view, a lawyer should start with an overview of how complicated is the case going to be before you ever talk about money. You need to know the scope of the problem and get a feel for the parties, because both parties have to work together. And I've had a few folks come to me, and with my sense of humor, I've found that if I say something humorous and they take offense at it, well, we're not going to work well together. So that there's a concern about that.
And both sides should have their own lawyer?
Must have. Sometimes a case will only have one lawyer, and the lawyer makes a mistake if that lawyer gives the impression or tries to represent both. Cannot, should not legally be done. It is best that both parties have independent counsel.
Okay, well, thank you, Doug. And we'll be back with viewer mail right after this, where Doug's going to answer your questions in viewer mail about divorce. We'll be right back.